Hello my fellow paint monsters, how are you doing today? This time we're going to have another look at the watercolors from Kwarts Creations. I want to make a color mixing chart, a bigger one this time, as I think there are a lot of interesting colors to mix together. I'd like to do a glazing test which is going to show you how these paints work when you want to put some fine detail on top of what you've already painted. And I'm going to throw in some other random mixes of colors that didn't make it to the main chart. So let's get going, shall we? I'm not entirely sure how this is going to work out, as not all of the colors I'm going to use in the mixing chart are incredibly pigmented and some of them are very granulating, but let's give it a go. I thought peach agate would be interesting to add in, as it's a very light color, a warm one. I thought it could create some nice pastel colors. Peach agate is a color that's a bit more difficult to pick up from the pan, so if you're going to use it for mixing, it's going to require a little bit more work from you. Dragon's blood was actually easier to activate a while ago, just after I received the paints, than it is now, after about 2 months have passed. You need to be slightly careful with quinafterone orange, as it's a very intense color and it might very easily dominate and completely overwhelm the other color that you use in your mix. But otherwise it can create some pretty nice browns. I love this indigo, so intense. One thing to note about the indigo though is that it does stink. It's the pigment, it does this. Genuine indigo does have an unpleasant smell, and if you buy an indigo paint and it smells, well, good for you. It's genuine, not synthetic. In the mixes, pyrite seems to lose most of its color separation. It's not as visible as when you use it as a standalone paint, but there remains a hint of unevenness in the color, and I think it can be very interesting. I especially like it with Indian blue, and I think it's pretty interesting with peach agate. I really like what happens when you mix together red ochre and Persia. I purposefully chose a color, red ochre, that's close to the color of Persia to give it more body, and it definitely worked. And when you mix together two granulating textured colors like lapis lazuli and dragon's blood, magic starts to happen. At least that's how I feel about that. I love what's going on here. As you can see in the glazing test, definitely not all of these paints are well suited for layering. With some of the colors you'll be fine if you want to paint some more detail on top of them, like celadonite, yellow ochre, Indian blue and mint. I was quite surprised that celadonite did so well in this test, as it granulates very heavily. Jade works reasonably well with glazing. You can see that a line you paint on top of it is going to feather a little bit and get a little bit blurry and thicker than on the clean paper, but I think it's mostly manageable. But peach agate and fuchsite, definitely no details on top of these. It's crazy what happens when you try to put a thin line on top of them. Well, that's how the pigment works. Not sure about fuchsite, but with peach agate definitely it's just, that's what happens. It's not the fault of the paint, it's the pigment, so I don't think there's much you can do about it. In general, the less water you use when you try to paint details on top of another layer, the easier it will be and the more control you're going to have. The more water you add, the more drastic the blurring and feathering is going to become. So it's better when your paintbrush is rather on the dry side and not dripping with paint when you want to put some finer details on top of what you've already painted. I'm using pyrite here for the background and I think it looks great. It makes fantastic backgrounds. So yeah, once again, watercolors from Kwarts Creations are a pleasure to work with. They mix very well and create a wide range of interesting colors. And since there's a lot of textured and granulating paints in the collection, it's definitely going to show in the mixes as well. And since even the gemstone paints activate really easily, and apart from peach agate, they're easy to pick up with your brush and transfer to your mixing palette. They're pretty good for mixing and easy to work with. Not all gemstone paints are like that. Alright, that's all I've got for you today. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, hit the like button. Feel free to share your views in the comments. And if you want to help Hungry for Paint grow, you can always make a small donation on Ko-fi. Make sure to visit Hungry for Paint on Instagram on Wednesday for a sneak peek and a chance to guess who our next maker is going to be. And visit Hungry for Paint blog soon for a text review of these paints. Thank you for watching. Hope to see you next week. Bye bye!